large language model, like to ask you questions, to quiz you to see if you understand. So that's what I did. I went to Perplexity and I said, ask me questions to test my understanding of what a Roth IRA is and how it works. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to look at these questions, and then some of them have come up and some of them haven't. So if there's any other questions that you have asked me that I haven't gotten to, I'll probably include those too. But I'm just going to go through these questions, and when we wrap up, we wrap up. So the first one is way too easy. What does Roth IRA stand for? It stands for a Roth Individual Retirement Account. If you didn't already know that, now you know. And it's called an individual retirement account because each individual person has to open it for him or herself. You can't just, open up a 401k at home from your laptop. You have to have an employer, a job, offer you that benefit at work. So 401k is very specific because it's an employer sponsored benefit, a retirement plan that you get through your job, versus an IRA, whether it's a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA or another type of IRA, it's created by you as an individual. So IRA, basically, easy way to remember, individuals setting up their own retirement account, individual retirement account. All right, the second question is, who is the Roth IRA named after? So this one is really interesting. You probably already know, like if you had to name one state in the United States that was like the best state for tax purposes, most people would guess Delaware. And the Roth IRA was actually created by a senator from Delaware. His name was William Roth. So, of course, if I created an account, I would name it after myself too. So he named the account after himself, and he came up with the idea to create an account that would allow you to get a lot of tax benefits, because obviously the state of Delaware is very tax friendly to corporations. Why not also be tax friendly to people who are starting to set money aside for retirement and want to, grow their money so they can, retire with dignity, right? So there's tax benefits, and that should obviously help you understand a little better where Roth comes from. I feel like a lot of people don't recognize that the word Roth is actually someone's last name. So when you write out the word Roth IRA, you don't need to capitalize every letter in Roth, because that's like capitalizing every letter in your last name, which is weird. We don't write our name in caps lock. So you just have to capitalize the R because it's just the first letter of the last name. And then IRA is capitalized because it's an acronym that stands for individual retirement account. So when you write out Roth IRA, only capitalize the R in Roth and all three letters in IRA. That's why you see it that way, because Roth is somebody's last name. All right, let's take a look at the next question. What is the main difference between a Roth IRA and a traditional IRA in terms of tax treatment? Well, when you open a traditional IRA and you put money into a traditional IRA, you're basically putting money into it that has not yet been taxed. But when you go to file your taxes, you are going to say, hey, I put in this much money into my traditional IRA this year, so I want you to give me a tax break. And so then whatever amount of taxes you owe, whatever your taxable income is going to be, that is used to calculate how much taxes you owe, that taxable income is going to be lowered because they're going to subtract the amount of money that you put into your traditional IRA. So that means that when you go to retire and you take money out of your traditional IRA, they're going to say, hey, you remember all those years ago when you put that money into the traditional IRA? Yeah, we gave you a little break. We subtracted it from your taxable income, so it was never actually taxed. So you need to pay those taxes now, because you really cannot avoid taxes. You're either going to pay them now or you're going to pay them when you pull the money out at retirement. So with the traditional IRA, you get a tax break when you file your taxes next, but then you don't get a tax break when you pull the money out at retirement. You got to pay them at that time. Whereas with the Roth IRA, you put money into the Roth IRA account and it hasn't been taxed yet. And then when you and it has already been taxed. So with both of them, it's after tax money. So you put money into the Roth IRA and you use money from your earned income. So usually when you earn income through your paycheck, you can look at your pay stub and see all the income, and it was taxed already. You can see the taxes and deductions that they take out. So you put the money in, it's already taxed. And then you leave it. And when you file your taxes next, they're going to ask, did you put money into a traditional IRA? You say, no. Did you put money into a Roth IRA? You say, yes. And they say, okay, great, move on. They're not going to give you any break. They're not going to deduct anything from your taxable income that you put into your Roth IRA, because it doesn't give you any tax breaks right now. You're going to pay the taxes, and that's just that. But then when you go to take the money out of the Roth IRA in retirement, they have nothing to hold over your head. They can't say, hey, remember all those years ago we gave you a tax break? No, they didn't. They never subtracted it from your taxable income. So you already paid your taxes on that paycheck when you earn that income, and they cannot tax you on that again. So the Roth IRA tax benefit comes later when you pull the money out at retirement, whereas the traditional IRA tax benefit comes when you file your taxes next. After you put the money in, the next time you file your taxes, you're going to get the tax break. It's going to be subtracted from your taxable income. So even though you're thinking, wait, I paid taxes on that income when I put it into my traditional IRA, I used money from my paycheck. Yes, but when you went to file your taxes the next time, they subtracted it from your taxable income. So it basically went back to zero. It canceled each other out. The taxes that you paid on your income was basically canceled out because they subtracted it from your taxable income. So it's basically like you didn't pay taxes all over again. Whereas with the Roth IRA, that's not the case. They never subtract it. You pay the taxes and then you just pay the taxes. So when you try to take the money out of retirement, there's nothing for them to ask you for because you don't owe them any taxes since you already paid them. So I really like the Roth IRA better than the traditional IRA because I personally got to a point where I don't necessarily need to worry about getting an income tax refund check or lowering my taxable income. Like if I owe whatever, I've paid a lot in taxes before, especially early when I started my business and I didn't really know how to use money from a business to invest back into the business, but I didn't really know. So I paid a lot of taxes. I don't necessarily mind. I'll pay my taxes. I'll pay my fair share. It's fine. But if I can lower the amount of taxes that I'm paying over the long run, over the course of my whole life, that would be really great, because a lot of people think that the most expensive thing you're going to pay for in your life is buying a house or paying for college. But actually, the most important thing you pay for in your life is taxes. So that's why it's really important to try to be as smart as you can and savvy as you can when it comes to taxes. Even if, it's not something you're nerding out about, you should still try to learn the basic tax strategies like putting money into tax advantaged accounts like a Roth IRA or a 401k and things like that. Now, the last thing I'll say about this before I move on to the next question is that Roth is also that like the tax perks of a Roth account also apply to other accounts. So you can also get a Roth 401k if your job offers you that option. So I'm really lucky because in my job, I have the option to either pick a traditional 401k or a Roth 401k. Just like a traditional IRA versus a Roth IRA, the Roth 401k allows you to put money in and you won't have to pay taxes when you take the money out at retirement, versus the traditional 401k, you're putting money in, you're getting tax advantages, but when you take the money out at retirement, you will still have to pay taxes on it. So I really like the idea of just when I look at my account balance, whatever number that is, that's what I get. I don't have to consider, oh, I got to subtract taxes that I owe on that amount, so it's actually less. I don't want to have to deal with all that crunching that math. Like I want my retirement to be easy. I want to just be able to be like, boom, I see this much money. That's all my money. So it's really simple that way. That's why I prefer Roth accounts. But I understand if you're the type of person who's like, I really need an income tax refund check, or I really need to lower my taxable income right now because it's very high and I can't afford to pay that. I really need a break on my taxes. Well, then you might want to choose on purpose to put money in the traditional IRA so that you can lower your taxable income by that amount. So everybody kind of has to pick and choose what's going to work best for your situation based on your needs and your preferences. Me personally, I just kind of like opting for the Roth accounts. I have a Roth 401k and I also have a Roth IRA. All right, let's move on. So, what are the 2025 contribution limits for Roth IRAs for individuals under and over the age of 50? So, the contribution amount that you're allowed to put into a Roth IRA changes over time. Sometimes it stays the same 2 years in a row, but then like the third year it'll change. And so, when I first started putting money into my Roth IRA, the annual amount you could put was like 5,500. Then it went up to 6,000. Then it went up to 6,500. Then it went up to 7,000. So for the 2025 tax year, you can only put $7,000 if you're under the age of 50 and file your taxes as single. And if you are over 50, you're getting closer and closer to like traditional retirement age, which is usually about 65 years old. So they want to give you a little bit of time to like play catch up because, you're closer to retiring than people who are younger than 50. So that means that you could put an extra $1,000. So the limit for under 50 is 7,000, but the limit for above 50 or older is actually $8,000. So that catch up contribution of an extra $1,000, if you can afford to do it and you're over 50, do it. I mean, I wish I could put 8,000 in my Roth IRA. I would, but I'm limited to 7,000. So the nice thing is once you put that money in, you know you don't have to worry about paying taxes on it ever again, and any profits or like growth that it makes or gains, you don't have to worry about paying taxes on that either, if as long as you follow all the rules for the Roth IRA account. So I mean, it's a pretty sweet deal. We all have that Senator William Roth from Delaware to thank. And I think he did this in the 90s. So this was probably like a 1997, 1998 thing that he did. So it's not like it's been around forever and ever. It's not something that's been around since the like 1970s, 1980s. This came out in the late 1990s. So pretty much 2000s was the first time where people could really start taking advantage of this. Okay, let's move along. Who is eligible to contribute to a Roth IRA? Consider income limits and filing status. So you're eligible to contribute to a Roth IRA if you have earned income, or if you don't have earned income, but you're married to a spouse who does have earned income, then they can open a spousal IRA for you and contribute for you on your behalf. And it's still your money in your account in your name. So that's the only exception to the earned income rule. But if you are not married and you want to contribute to a Roth IRA, then you must have earned income. And that's in terms of like what rule you have to follow. You have to have earned income. Then in terms of the income limits, if you're single and you make over $150,000 a year, you have to you basically cannot contribute to a Roth IRA anymore because you make too much money. So the tax benefits, they're trying to give those tax perks to people that really need it, which is usually people that earn a little bit lower than those higher incomes that they consider. I guess they've considered 150,000 and up to be like a high income earner. So if you make less than 150,000, you can, put in money to the Roth IRA, directly contribute it, no problem. But if you're somebody who makes over 150,000, so when I started making over $150,000 a year, I was like a little sad. It's like, oh man, I can no longer qualify to put money into the Roth IRA. But that's when I learned about the backdoor Roth IRA, which is basically the little bit of like semantics and syntax, like the actual vocabulary in the law says that you cannot put money directly into a Roth IRA if you make over $150,000 a year. But it doesn't say anything about whether you can convert money into it. You just can't contribute directly. So what people do to go through the back door is they open a traditional IRA. They fund it with their money that they want to put into the Roth IRA. They put it into the traditional IRA first because the traditional IRA does not have any income limits. You could make $10 million a year and you could still put $7,000 into your traditional IRA. There's no rule against that. So you take the money, you put it into the traditional IRA, which has no income limits. And then pretty soon after, you convert it. So you change the account type, you convert it to a Roth IRA. So now you got the money into the Roth IRA by converting it from a traditional IRA, but you never contributed the money straight into the Roth IRA. So you didn't break the rules, right? It's like a loophole in the tax law. So a lot of people who make over $150,000, that's what they do. That's what I've been doing for a few years now. Since I've started making more money, I will put the money into a traditional IRA and then immediately I will convert it to a Roth IRA. So I'm still able to get that Roth IRA money into the Roth IRA account, still use it to buy index funds or ETFs, low cost investments, and still benefit from not having to pay taxes ever again on that money that I converted into the account. And also don't have to worry about any taxes that I'll have to ever owe on any of the profits, gains, growth that account has over time. So that's pretty amazing. And then filing status. If you are married and you don't have any income, but your spouse does, then they can open a spousal IRA for you. But the only way you can qualify for that is if you file your taxes as married filing jointly. If you're a married couple and you file married filing separately, then even if you don't have any earned income, but your partner does, and or your spouse does, and they put money in, they can't do that for you unless you guys start to file taxes as married filing jointly. So those are little bits of things that like, it seems so minute and so like not important, but it's really important because if you're not filing your taxes that way, then you can't put the money into a spousal IRA. You can't have your spouse put that money in there for you. So there's just like a lot of rules. It's kind of like when you sit down to play Monopoly, you kind of got to understand all the little nuances and rules of the game. Otherwise, you're going to be lost and confused throughout the game. So there are a lot of rules, but once you learn them all, and you don't have to memorize them, just like generally read about it and learn about it. And then if you think it's going to apply to you, that's when you go research and look it up. But you do have to be aware of like generally what the can and cannot, like what the do's and don'ts are of the Roth IRA, because it has a great benefit, but you also have to make sure you're doing things the right way, because you don't want no smoke with the IRS. I don't want smoke with the IRS. I don't want them coming for me. I don't want to get in trouble with them. I don't want to owe a bunch of money. I don't want them going through my records and saying that I'm trying to be sketchy. I want to do everything correctly so I don't have problems with the IRS. Let's see what the next question is. What is the 5-year rule for Roth IRAs, and when does the clock start? So the 5-year rule is basically like anytime that you're going to go and take out profits, gains, growth from the account, you have to make sure that before you take those out, the account has to have been open for 5 years in order for you, and not even just open for 5 years, you have to have funded it, and then it's been 5 years since you funded it. So that's really important, because I know a lot of people who are really close to retirement age. Like, let's say you are 57 years old. Technically, the rules say you can take the money out at 59 and a half, but that's only if you meet the 5-year waiting period, which means that you have had the account open and you started funding it, and then 5 years later, that's when you can start taking out profits. So if you started the account at 57 years old and you started putting money in at 57, you have to wait 58, 59, 60, 61, 62. And January 1st of your 62nd birthday year, that's when you can start taking out profits from the Roth IRA. Even though the rules say, hey, but it says I could take my money out at 59 and a half though. But you have to meet the 5-year waiting period too. So there's 2 rules for taking money out from the profits and the gains of your account. You have to be 59 and a half years old first, and you also have to have the account has been funded for 5 years, or it has been open and you put funding in there, money in there for 5 years. So 5 years ago at least. If it's been more than 5 years, great. So the 5-year waiting period is kind of like the reason why I'm always on my soapbox, like open a Roth IRA, open a Roth IRA. I'm telling everybody, open a Roth IRA, because the earlier you open it, then 5 years later, like the 5 years can pass quickly. But like if you wait until you are 55 years old to open it, then you have to wait 5 years, the 5-year waiting period. That means you can't take money out until you're 60. When technically you should be able to start taking money out at 59 and a half. You're going to have to delay taking that money out. And waiting 6 months, a year, 2 years can make a big difference in your financial situation if the money is sitting there, but you can't touch it because it hasn't been 5 years. That's going to be very annoying for your future self. So I always tell people, just open the Roth IRA as early as you can so that you could get the clock ticking on that 5-year waiting period, and just get the 5-year waiting period over with sooner rather than later. I think I answered that one fully. Oh, and when does the clock start? So January 1st of the year when you put your first contribution in. It doesn't matter when you put the contribution in that year, you automatically start counting January 1st. So let's say you put $100 into your Roth IRA on December 20th of 2025. Well, then the 5-year clock starts ticking January 1st of 2025. So it doesn't matter when in the year you put the money in, the clock starts ticking January 1st of that year when you made your first contribution to your Roth IRA. Then January 1st, 5 years later, is when you can start taking money out without any penalties and without any taxes, no income taxes. So that's really, really important to note. But obviously you have to be 59 and a half as well. So if let's say you open it when you're 25 years old, then 5-year waiting period means you're 30 years old. Now, if you take the money out, your gains and profits, of course, you're not 59 and a half. So you would have to use the money you're taking out from gains and profits for a qualified distribution. So if you take out $10,000 of profit and you're only 30 years old, you could use that money to put a down payment on your first home purchase, and you won't have to worry about taxes or penalties, because that is one of the things that is a qualified distribution that's allowed under the Roth IRA rules. But if you take the money out and go on a trip around the world, that's not a qualified distribution. So you're going to have to pay income taxes on that. And you're also going to have to pay 10% penalty on top of the income taxes, because you took it out before 59 and a half, and it wasn't for one of the allowed distributions. It wasn't for one of the things that is an exception. So these are the things what I mean when I was talking about like the little rules and the specific details about knowing these things, because if you break one of these rules without knowing it, all of a sudden you're in trouble with the IRS. So you definitely don't want that. Okay, let me see. What is the Roth part meaning? Oh, that was a really good question from Instagram. So that's the last name of the senator who created the account. His name is William Roth. He was a senator from Delaware in like 1997, around there. He created the Roth IRA account through it was part of like a piece of legislation, an act that was passed to help people get like tax breaks. So that was one of the ideas that he came up with. And because he came up with it, they put his last name on it to help people remember he was the one that did it. So Roth is just his last name. And this happens a lot. This is not just the Roth IRA. Like if you've ever seen on your credit card statements, if you have a credit card, when you get your credit card statement in the mail, or if you get a PDF of your credit card statement, the very first page always has to have a box at the top that tells you if you pay the minimum balance only and you keep only paying the minimum, this is how long it's going to take you to pay off this credit card. And this is how much total interest fees you're going to give away, you're going to pay because you're paying just the minimum. They have to like legally put that in a box and show you this is what you're doing. If you only pay the minimum, you're going to be paying forever and you're going to pay all this interest. So that way people understand that they shouldn't just pay the minimum. Like they should pay more than that, because the minimum is the worst idea when it comes to getting out of credit card debt. You should always put as much as you can. But a lot of people think, oh, it just says minimum due, so that's all I'm going to do. And they don't realize that it's hurting them financially to do that. So that box was created by Chuck Schumer. So the name of the box is the Schumer box. It was named the last name of the lawmaker who created the idea and passed that law. So now every credit card statement that you ever see has to have a Schumer box. And you know why it's called a Schumer box, because it's the last name of the person who created that law. Same thing with the Roth IRA. William Roth came up with the idea. He's the one that pushed that and passed. And now it's called the Roth IRA because it was named after the lawmaker who created that idea and got it passed into law. So this is very common in politics, where you see somebody came up with this idea and then they name something after that person. So they get credit for coming up with the idea and actually getting successful with that legislation. It's not easy to take your idea and actually pass it into law. So when somebody does do it, chances are they'll probably either name the bill after them or the act after them, or put the name on something like the account or the box on the statement. Like those kinds of things are very common. So that's where Roth comes from. Any other questions that I got on Instagram or YouTube? No. Okay, cool. So let me go back to my quiz questions here. At what age can you withdraw earnings from a Roth IRA without no penalties, assuming that the 5-year rule is met? 59 and a half years old. Now, again, there's exceptions, specifically if you're a disability, any death, if you want to buy your first time home, if you want to pay for college expenses. These are things that are exceptions to the rule. But if you are not 59 and a half years old yet, you should not be touching the profits in the account. The contributions that you put in, the direct deposits that you made, so anytime that you deposited money into the account yourself, that money is a separate bucket, and you can take that money back out anytime you want with no questions asked, no penalty fees, and no taxes owed. So that's the beautiful thing about the Roth IRA. When you put the money in there, you could take out what you put in anytime. But I mean, you shouldn't do that. You should let it keep growing. But the rules allow you to take out what you contributed. You could take it back out anytime. But these other rules about you can't touch it till you're 59 and a half, that's talking about a separate pot of money, which is any profits that grew on top of what you put in. So what you put in is called contributions. You can take contributions out anytime. But what grew on top of the contributions, those profits, those earnings and gains, those are the things that, that's not your money. Technically, you didn't put that money in there. It grew as a profit. So that's the money that they want you to wait to touch. And if you take it out too early, taxes, penalties. So just be really careful knowing what's the difference between how much I've put in so far and the amount and the account balance, because anything that I didn't put in myself is the earnings and the profit. That's the stuff that I really can't touch until I'm 59 and a half, unless it follows one of those rules. Unless it's like $10,000 of profits that I take out to put a down payment on my first home, then that's cool. I don't have to pay taxes or penalties for that because it follows one of the exceptions. But if it's not any of the exceptions and you're not 59 and a half, don't touch those earnings or profits. You can take contributions out, but you can't take out the earnings. So just think of the money inside of your Roth IRA as two pots of money, or two buckets of money. The first bucket is what you put in, contributions, and the second bucket is what profits grew on that. And that's the one that's locked away. The contributions is never locked. You can take it out anytime you need to or want to with no questions asked. Now, me, I'm trying never to have to touch it until I really need to, because I want to leave it there to really grow and make me more profit. If I take it out, That's less money to make profit for me. So it's less money working for me in the account. I want as much money working for me as possible to make as much profit as possible. And then one day I can take out either 10K before I'm 59 and a half to put a down payment on a house, or I can just wait till I'm 59 and a half and then start taking out all the profit. But between now and then, if I need money, I know I can. If I have to, I could take out contributions. But it's just nice knowing that's kind of like a safety net. But yeah, I'm definitely not encouraging that you do that. You should try not to do that. But it's nice to know that's like backup, backup, backup. Like you can take that money out if you really, really need to. Okay, what are considered qualified distributions from a Roth IRA? That's the second pot of money, the earnings, once you're 59 and a half, qualified distributions. Contributions that you put in, you can take out anytime. So don't confuse the words. Contribution means you contributed that money into the account versus distribution. They both end with abusion, but contribution and distribution are different. Contribution, you put it in, and distribution means you're taking the money out. Think of it like distributing something, like it's being given out to people, versus contributing something means you're giving it in. So contributing money, you're putting it into the account. That's contributing money. But when you distribute the money, it's being given out. You're taking it out and it's being given to you. So you definitely got to separate those vocabulary words. Contribution versus distribution. Contribution goes in, distribution comes out. So you want to make sure you don't take any distributions unless they are allowed, unless they're what the question is asking about, qualified distributions. So that's like a little bit technical, but can make a big difference when it comes to taxes and not getting in trouble with the IRS. Are there required minimum distributions, which means taking money out, required to take out a minimum amount out, required minimum distributions or RMDs for Roth IRA during the account holder's lifetime? The beautiful thing about it is the answer is no. There is no amount of money that you're required to take out. There's no distribution that you're required to take out. You can just keep contributing money, putting money into the Roth IRA year after year after year after year after year. And then if retirement comes and you stop working, you can take money out of your 401k. You can take money out of your custodial brokerage account. You can get cash flow from rental properties and real estate. Maybe you have a little business that's also generating some money. Your social security income might also be some extra money coming at you. And so through all those income sources, you probably like, I'm good. I'm comfortable. I can pay for everything that I need and want, and I don't really need to touch my Roth IRA. Okay, great. Then don't touch it. Leave it. Because the Roth IRA can be a very powerful generational wealth building tool, because you never have to take money out of it. So if you never touch it, you could pass it down to your child, to your grandchild, to any beneficiary in your family without them having to pay any taxes on that. This is the part that's huge. No taxes. So if your child inherits your Roth IRA after you pass away, they don't have to pay any taxes on that Roth IRA money. But the one caveat, the one little asterisk on this is that they have to empty that account within 10 years of inheriting it. So after 10 years, the account does have to be empty. Now, that doesn't mean that they have to take the money out and go on a shopping spree. What they do with the money should be responsible, obviously. So they can take the money out and invest it in another investment account. Maybe they put it in a regular brokerage account, a taxable brokerage account. But they definitely cannot leave it in that account after 10 years of inheriting it. But hey, tax-free for 10 years is tax-free for 10 years. That's still an incredible generational wealth building tool. I wish more people knew that the Roth IRA, you could use it like that to pass it down without any taxes on it. That's amazing. Okay, let's see. Backdoor Roth IRA, we talked about that already. What happens if you withdraw money from the profits or the earnings part of your Roth IRA, but you're not 59 and a half years old yet, and the 5-year rule has not been met, the 5-year waiting period? If you take money out of your Roth IRA early, before you're 59 and a half, and you haven't hit the 5-year waiting period on it, then you're going to be taxed income tax. Whatever your regular income tax bracket is, you're going to be taxed on that money that you took out from the earnings part. And also on top of the income tax, you're also going to be charged a penalty, which is 10%. So it's basically going to be income tax plus 10%. That's a lot of taxes. That's a huge chunk of the money that you took out just being given away to the IRS simply because you broke the rules. So try everything you can in your control and power to follow the rules for the Roth IRA. Only take money out of earnings if you're going to use it for a qualified distribution, like putting $10,000 of that money towards your first down payment on your first home or college costs, but do not take it out to use it for anything else, because then you're going to be charged income taxes and 10% penalty fees. So just be very, very careful with that. That's very important to know, because it's not just like a regular investment account. The Roth IRA is specifically a retirement account. So it's designed to help you with retirement, not to help you take a trip to Cancun. Like, it's not meant for you to take the money out and just go blow it. So just be very careful and intentional with the way that you manage that money, or you plan to use that money. And if you can wait till you're 59 and a half to use it, even better, because then your retirement is going to be really nice and comfortable, instead of taking money out before that age and you're basically taking away money from your future self if you do that. So that's why I would only really consider touching my earnings of my Roth IRA specifically for a down payment on my first home, or some other qualified exception or distribution that's allowed by the tax law. Can you contribute to both a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA at the same time in the same tax year? That's a really good question. Yes, you can. You just cannot put more than a combined total of the maximum contribution limit allowed, which is for 2025, that's $7,000. So you could either split that in half and put 3,500 into a traditional IRA and 3,500 into a Roth IRA. If you can't choose between them and you don't know about the tax benefits, well, split the 7K in half and put 3,500 here, 3,500 there. But you could put any split you want. Like, you can put 1,000 into a traditional IRA and put 6,000 into a Roth IRA, as long as it adds up to 7,000 total. So you cannot put 7,000 into a Roth IRA and then also another 7,000 into a traditional IRA. It's not a $7,000 limit per IRA. It's a $7,000 limit combined for all IRAs in your name per year. So, or at least for the 2025 year. Maybe it'll go up a little bit in 2026. I don't know. Or 2027. But for now, it's a combined total of $7,000. Unless you're over 50, then it's a combined total of $8,000. So just be really mindful. You can have both accounts, but you can't overfund it beyond 7K or 8K, because then you're going to be dealing with the IRS saying, you overfunded, you contributed too much, and then you'll get penalized. So just try not to break those simple rules like that. All right. If you inherit a Roth IRA, are you required to take distributions out of it? You are not for 10 years. But once 10 years is up, yes, you have to take the money out after 10 years if you inherit the Roth IRA. But the beautiful thing about that is you will not be taxed on it. So, I mean, that's amazing. Just again, the idea that you can inherit something and not have to pay taxes on that inheritance, chef's kiss when it comes to taxes, right? All right. I think I have one last question. What is the penalty for non-qualified early withdrawals from a Roth IRA? We talked about that one. So the penalty is you have to pay income taxes at your regular income tax bracket plus 10% penalty fee. Ouch. So you definitely don't want to take out earnings or profit. Now, that does not apply to contributions. Again, this is not true for contributions. If you put money into a Roth IRA, you could take it back out anytime, no questions asked. But this is specifically referring to the profits, the earnings, the growth on top of the contributions that you put in. So again, keep those monies separate into two different buckets to help you kind of make it easier for yourself, right? To think about them differently. Oh my gosh, I think that was it. Yes, that was all of the questions about Roth IRAs that I got from the chat bot. So, which is amazing. Let's see. Sky the Freedom on Instagram said, what about a withdrawal to pay off the remaining balance on a mortgage? Ooh, that is a good question. I'm not sure if you can do that. I think that it might work, but I think that if I read the distribution language correctly, it has to be to put a down payment on your first property. But let's see. I will ask Perplexity. Let's see. Is it okay to take out a distribution if it's going to be used for paying a remaining balance? If the account has been open for 5 years and you're 59 and a half, you can take $10,000 out for a first-time home purchase. Yeah, so I think it's the first time home purchase exception. The IRS allows you to withdraw up to $10,000 total in your lifetime. So really up to 10K. Maybe you could take out 5K the first time. Then after 2 years, you qualify as a new homeowner again, in which case you buy another house and you buy five and you put 5,000 again, but it has to add up to 10K total for your whole lifetime. It's not like 10K each time. It's 10K total in your life. You could do this from a Roth IRA for a first time home purchase, including buying, building, or rebuilding the home. This can be used for acquisition costs, which may include a down payment or closing costs, but not for paying off an existing mortgage balance unless it is part of acquiring a new home. So, very specific language there. They make it very clear that it's not for paying an existing mortgage balance unless that happens to be part of the process of acquiring a new home. So, very interesting there. I never really thought about that. Can I use it to pay off a mortgage already? Because the language specifically says first time home purchase. So, it has to be the purchase part. It can't, if you already own it and you already bought it and you're trying to pay off the mortgage, that's not a first time home purchase. So, there's very technical language about that. But yeah, that was a very good question. All right, y'all. So my Instagram questions are looking a little low. Let me go check YouTube and see if y'all have questions over here for me. Let's see. Is a 403b provided by a job useful, or should I use a Roth IRA instead? Good question, Carlos. All right. So what I would say to you, Carlos, is check if your 403b gives you a company match. If your 403b gives you a company match, then you should try to put in enough to get that company match. So let's say you make $100,000 a year and the company will match you at 5%. Well, then put 5% of your salary in there and they're going to give you another 5%. So 5% of $100,000 is $5,000. So you put in $5,000, they're going to give you $5,000. So now magically you have $10,000 in your 403b, even though you only put in $5,000 from your income yourself. So now you earn $95,000 because you put 5,000 into the 403b, but then it turned into 10,000 because the company matched it. So that is a really great way to get more money from your company, basically increasing your salary, you're increasing your compensation package by getting that match. And then after you do that, any money extra that you want to invest, put it in the Roth IRA, because the Roth IRA is going to give you the ability to take out your contributions in an emergency plus tax-free growth on your earnings. So that's something that the 403b won't give you. You can't just take money out of your 403b tomorrow. Like once you put it in there, you got to wait till 59 and a half to withdraw anything from the 403b, versus the Roth IRA has extra special perks. So I would personally say get the match from your 403b if they offer one, and then go Roth IRA, then come back to your 403b, put a little more if you can. And if you don't want to keep it locked away till retirement, then do a regular brokerage account that's taxable. And there you could buy whatever you want. Versus in the 403b, they're going to give you a little menu and you have to choose from the menu of options, which are generally going to be mutual funds and index funds. Not bad investments, but you got to be very careful with those fees that they charge, that they call expense ratios. So you want to look at how much are the fees and try to keep them as low as possible. Like most people would say less than 0.30%. So not 3%, 2%, 1%. That's too high. 0.3% or less is what experts say is a fair and low cost for expense ratios when it comes to index funds, mutual funds, or ETFs. All right, let's see what else y'all got for me. Can you make a video on how the backdoor IRA process works? Yeah, that's from Cokes on YouTube. Yeah, I got you. I can do that. I've done the backdoor Roth IRA a couple times already, a few years in a row. Just one video with like, okay, step by step how I did it. Should I contribute more than my company match? If you got it like that, like in my case, I make so much money outside of my 9 to 5 job that I don't really need the paycheck that I get from my 9 to 5 job, right? Because I make money from book sales, from speaking, from social media, from blogging, from podcast hosting. So I don't really need my paycheck. It's nice to have, but I don't really need it. So what I do is I max out my 401k. The maximum you can put in is $23,500 for the tax year 2025. So right away, I just fill out the paperwork at my job to say, max it out, take $23,500 throughout the year. And that to me doesn't really hurt me. But that's now because I have all these other income sources that I can use to pay my bills and to live my life. And I don't have to worry about that paycheck. Taking away 23,500 from your annual salary is a big hit. If your annual salary is not that high, you're not going to be able to afford to do that. When I was teaching, making $40,000 a year, there was no way in hell that I was going to be able to max out at 23,500. That's more than half of my whole teacher salary. Like I was not going to be able to afford to do that. But now I'm in a very different place financially. So evaluate your situation financially. Do the math. If you make $100,000 and you're going to subtract $20,000 from that, you're basically lowering your salary to $80,000 because you're putting 20K into your 403B. And if you're cool with the 80,000 instead of the 100,000, and that works out for you to pay your mortgage, pay your bills, to be able to pay for transportation and food and all the things you pay for, then do it, because it's not a bad idea to set yourself up well for your future, for retirement. But understand that if you wanted to use that money later for something different from retirement, like starting a business, buying a home, you're not going to be able to necessarily do that easily. So if you just want to get the company match and then start putting that money in another investment account that doesn't have limitations of just retirement, then you can just get the company matching your 403B, and then every extra money from your paycheck that you don't use for bills or necessities, put it in a regular brokerage account. That way you can buy low cost ETFs, low cost index funds, diversify that account, pay low fees. And then if you want to use it for a business in 5 years, or you want to use it to buy a house in 7 years, there's no questions asked. You can do it. But it's going to be taxed each year on your gains, capital gains tax, instead of the 403B. You don't got to worry about taxes as you go until you take it out at retirement. So those are kind of like the pros and cons that you got to consider. Me personally, I just max it out because I don't really rely on that money. But if I needed it, like when I was making $40,000 as a teacher, I wouldn't be able to afford to do that. So I'm doing it now because I can afford it. So ask yourself, is that okay for me? Is that comfortable for me? Can I really swing that? And maybe you start trying to do it. And then if it's too much and your check is too small and you really needed the money, you could just go to HR again and change the form and lower it again. But maybe challenge yourself and see, can I be able to do it? And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Adjust your plan. Move it back to how it was. Keep it to 10, 20, 15% contribution. But I always think it's a very personal choice because it's going to leave you financially tight if you're maxing out your 401k or your 403b and your income is not very, very high. Because again, that's 23,500 to max it out. It's a big chunk. Some people's annual salary is 23,500, right? So that's really the important thing to consider is what is that amount relative to how much you make, and is that realistic for you? Is that doable for you? Because you definitely don't want to put yourself in a situation where you can't be sustaining yourself financially. All right, Gohan 1988 says, is it better to stick with the 7K max a year contribution, or is there a pro to putting more than that in your Roth IRA? You cannot put more than that. Like the government will not allow it. You will have to deal with a big headache on your tax forms if you go above 7K. You can only put in $7,000 into a Roth IRA if you're under the age of 50 and you make under $150,000. If you are over the age of 50, then you can put in $8,000 because they give a $1,000 catch-up contribution for older folks. But if you're under 50 right now, you can't. You just can only put the limit of 7,000. But let's say you have an extra 2,000 sitting in an account. And you're like, I don't need that 7,000, that extra 2,000. I wanted to put in my Roth IRA, but I can't. Well, then put it in a regular brokerage account. Just open a regular investment account. That's not a Roth IRA, not a traditional IRA. It's not a special account. It's not a 529. It's not a health savings account. It's just a brokerage account, a regular investment account. And you can put the extra money in there. But you cannot pass 7K. You can't go above it. Unless you're over 50, you can go above it by 1,000 as a catch-up contribution. But yeah, under 50 years old, nah, it's not even an option for you. Roth IRA for babies. Eddie one, I'm loving this because I posted about this on my Instagram. Will this affect them later on during school loans, etc.? I love this question. No, I love it because the answer is no. If you have a child who is, let's say close to college age, like 17, 18, right? And they're applying for college right now. And let's say they have $15,000 saved up in a savings account from the work they've been doing, from money you've given them, all this stuff, right? 15,000 sitting in a savings account. That is going to hurt their financial aid eligibility because FAFSA is going to look The FAFSA process, they're going to look at the savings account. They're going to look at checking accounts in their name. They're going to look at any assets that they have, stocks, bonds, things like that in their regular accounts. But if they have that money in retirement accounts, like a Roth IRA, it cannot be used against you in a financial aid application or in the FAFSA because it's specifically protected. It's tax sheltered. It's protected from, like, because of the fact that it's for retirement, they can't use it to say, oh, well, you can use that money to pay tuition. No, because that money can't be touched till I'm 59 and a half because it's for retirement. So the formula can't look at it. It's like protected with like a turtle shell. Like they can't mess with it. But if it's in a regular bank account, a checking account, or a savings account, there's no protection on that. It will hurt you financially by not a ton, but like, I think it's like 5% of a hit. So if you were supposed to get $100, you're only going to get $95. It's going to lower by about 5% what money you have in accounts that are not retirement accounts. So I recommend, if your baby has earned income, or if your teenager has earned income from working, put that money in a Roth IRA, put up to 7K in there, because that's basically protecting that 7K so that it's not used against you in financial aid, and you can qualify for all the financial aid that you're eligible for without it hurting you, the fact that it's in your name. It could be in your name in a Roth IRA, not in your name in a checking or savings account, because that will hurt you. That was a really good question. And I wish I knew that when I was in high school, because I would have opened the Roth IRA with my little paychecks instead of having, like, my little Sweet 16 money was just sitting in a regular savings account or checking account. So I wish I knew, because I could have been strategic and put that in a Roth IRA. What if you make more than 150K annually? Good question. If you make more than 150K, then you can't contribute the money directly into the Roth IRA. You would have to convert another account into a Roth IRA account. So what you could do is take 7K, put it into a traditional IRA, because there's no income limits on that. It doesn't matter how much money you make. You can put $7,000 into the traditional IRA, then go into your account and press convert this traditional IRA, just magically convert it into a Roth IRA. So when the government looks at what you did with your money, you never contributed 7K into a Roth IRA. No, you did not. You contributed it into a traditional IRA and then converted it into a Roth IRA. So that's called the backdoor Roth IRA. You could basically come in through the back door. You didn't just go directly inside through the front. So that's the silly name for it. But yeah, basically you can still do it. You just can't do it the way everyone else does it who makes under 150K. They have it easy. They just do one step, deposit the 7K into the Roth IRA. You would have two steps. You have to deposit it into a traditional IRA. Then second step is convert the traditional IRA to a Roth IRA. So just one extra step. Thank you so much for your response. You got it. All right, y'all. That is me. That's a wrap. I'm tired. And we talk so much about Roth IRAs. I feel like I'm going to have a lot of really good short bite-sized clips from this. So if you want recaps, check my shorts on YouTube, check my reels on Instagram, because I'm going to take bite-sized versions from our conversation today and make little short content. There's so much good stuff in here, but I know that I go on and it's very technical. So you might have to recap and rewatch some of these clips, and the short little bite-sized versions probably make it easy to grab little nuggets of what we talked about. So hope you come back and watch those. I'll be back live again tomorrow to take more questions. So hit me up in DMs if you have questions, or put them on my community tab on YouTube.